Robinson.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we are very well aware of the Canterbury earthquake. We're extremely well aware of the impact that it's had on individuals, families, communities and that whole city. And we're extremely well aware of the impact that it has on the New Zealand economy. And it is offensive to have a member of the government stand up and tell people on this side of the House that we don't understand the impact of the Canterbury earthquake. We know every single day the struggles that people in Canterbury are having, and we support them in there. But, Mr Speaker, the problems in the New Zealand economy go far further back than the earthquake. The problems in the New Zealand economy are the economic mismanagement of 2.5 years of Bill English's time. That is the problem. This recession is National's recession. This is the recession that they have driven us into. New Zealand is going backwards under National. This recession lies at the feet of the National government because, Mr Speaker, they do not have a real economic plan. It looked like Louise Upston was going to upstage Bill English and finally announce National's economic plan. But no, she didn't really go there, because the best we've seen, Mr Speaker, is asset sales. The best we've seen is a slash and burn budget. But now I think there is one thing that the House can come together on, perhaps with the exception of Hilary Calvert. There's one thing we can come together on in terms of savings from this budget, and that is the end of the 2025 task force. Yes. It can be done. I think we can come together across the House on this, but however, there's a little bit of a problem for National in this, in that the savings they'll get from that probably won't amount to much, because Don Brash blew the budget in the first year. I think the whole lot of the money's actually gone, Mr Speaker. So unfortunately that won't be the answer to New Zealand's economic woes either, because this National government does not have a plan. And we saw in question time today just how out of touch this government is with New Zealanders' everyday struggles. Paula Bennett stood up in this House just before and said, this is the government that's taking tough decisions. I'll tell Paula Bennett, Mr Speaker, the people taking tough decisions in New Zealand are the families who are having to decide whether they can take their children to the doctor or whether they can afford to put healthy food on the table. That kind of a decision is one that no family in New Zealand should have to face. But that's what's happening as cost of living goes up, as petrol prices go through the roof, as rents go up, as power goes up. People are being faced with decisions in this country, Mr Speaker, that none of us would want to have to make. Families having to spend 20% of their weekly food budget on a visit to the doctor, as the person from the Kapiti Coast who wrote to me told me. That is unacceptable, Mr Speaker. And we all know on this side of the House, and New Zealanders know, what a zero budget looks like. It looks like cuts in areas of importance to New Zealand, and headlines like this: big health cuts on the way. That's last year's budget, Mr Speaker, let alone what's going to be coming in this budget. And we know from the 1990s, Mr Speaker, what a slash and burn budget looks like in health. It looks like increased costs to go to the doctor, increased costs for prescriptions, user charges. They're the things that the National Party brought in last time there was a zero budget. That's what we're looking out for, Mr Speaker, because what we know is, despite the spin with the National government telling us that they'll be spending more on health next year, it will not be enough to make health stand still. It's a little like, Mr Speaker, going to the supermarket and saying, I spent more on my groceries this week, but I didn't get as many things in the basket, because costs have gone up. And that's what's happening in health. The cost of actually delivering healthcare, the ageing population, these things are going to mean that health cuts are on the way. Education cuts are on the way, let alone the cuts to working for families, the cuts to early childhood education. Mr Speaker, we need to see these things as an investment in our future. We need to invest in people, skills and training, innovation. These are the things that governments should be doing, acting against the tide, making sure that people have the skills to be able to grow our economy, to create jobs and opportunities for our children and our grandchildren, Mr Speaker. Because if we don't protect the assets that have been built up by past generations and use them for future generations, what is the point of government? This government is taking a short-term view. Everybody in New Zealand knows we have to be careful with the management of the economy. But to slash and burn, to take money out of people's pockets who need it and put it into the pockets of those who don't, is not going to grow our economy. It is not going to lead to the kind of future that our children and grandchildren can have to achieve their potential. Labour is focused on policies that actually will enhance the well-being of children, that will protect our efforts, not slash and burn.